Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today we are talking about Fire Force, Episode 3, the Rookie Fire Soldier Games. Couple quick things to say beforehand. First, if you hear any background noise, that's my bad. There's just been a hum in the background. I'm gonna try to edit that out. If not, my bad. Hopefully it's not too annoying. The second thing I want to say is just a quick reminder that if you guys share today's video on Twitter, be sure to tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much, like the number 2, because my name wouldn't fit. And if you tag me, I will then shout you out in the next Fire Force video. So just, you want to get your name in a video, that's a good way to do it. And it helps support me in these videos and the channel and blah, blah, blah. But speaking of support, I definitely could not cover as many shows as I've been able to cover this season if it wasn't for all the help we've been getting over on Patreon. So a big shout out to those of you guys over on Patreon. If you would like to join us, be sure to check out the first link in the description. That'd be super cool of you. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead and jump into this week's episode of Fire Force. Now, I am admittedly a little bit hesitant. Now, normally the way I do this is I start with the good, then go into some of my more negative thoughts, and then end with some stuff worth noting. Today, I'm going to talk about the stuff worth noting at the beginning, since it's going to sort of color a lot of this, my opinions on this week's episode. The show did apparently receive some censorship after the unfortunate incident that happened to KyoAni. If you don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't know, but Kyoto Animation was unfortunately attacked and was set ablaze. And of course, when your show is called Fire Force, this raises a bit of a dilemma. Now, David Pro, in a move that I thought was really well handled, and I think everybody else did too, they took the week off. They took the week to just sort of back off and probably take a bit of a hatchet to this episode. I do think that maybe there was some stuff cut. There is some scenes that are still sort of like maybe hit too close, and I know for a lot of folks this may hit too close given like the nature of the subject matter of the show. It definitely is still sort of raw for a lot of folk, and I don't blame you. Like, I don't blame anybody who's not watching Fire Force because of the incident, or even beyond that, just if they have any sort of negative experience with fire. This sort of stuff, it can bring back bad memories for some folk. I'm still going to keep watching because I friggin' adore this show. So far, it's been 3 episodes and I'm already in. But I do recognize that, some folk maybe are going to drop off, and that's perfectly understandable. I think David Pro has handled this with the utmost grace and class. Taking the week off was perfect. I think that was the best idea. And now you just sort of soldier on and you make the best out of a bad situation. And I think David Pro has done that. I definitely think there's some changes, because throughout the episode, there was certain shots that held for very long periods of time. I'm probably showing the screenshot of what I'm talking about. If you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. They hold on the shot for quite a while. And I think it's because they're maybe showing fire being put out, like actual firefighter work, instead of the fun shonen-y firefighter stuff. Like the actual firefighter stuff I think was being shown, and maybe they cut it out. That's my guess. I'm just speculating. I did want to almost put that as a negative, but how could I? That's why I'm bringing it up here now in the worth noting section, because I can't hold that against the show. So yeah, that is a thing. I do think maybe there was some censorship, but I do think on the whole it's not bad. I was worried the fire was going to be green or something. The censorship was classy, it was appropriate, and I think David Pro handled it, like I said, with class and grace. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about something more fun, namely 11 Yen, which feels appropriately gimmicky and very, very cute, very, very real too. I find a lot of companies have this desire to have goofy mascots represent them, and I think 11 Yen is friggin' adorable, very appropriate. The sense of humor in the show is very goofy. I do think that maybe it goes a little far in the etchier side, and I will get into that in a second, or later on when we get to the negative stuff. But I do think the comedy on the whole is still pretty good. It's still got a chuckle out of me, especially when Shinra is like, "This is cute," and Maki's like, yes it is. And Shinra just, again, is like, this old man. That's, I like that. I dig that. I also really dig the captain of the first so far. I definitely feel like he is keeping something. There are secrets at play for sure, but I do think that he has his reasons. I don't know. I'd like to see more from the Captain of the First than we've seen. Him and another character who I'll get to later are characters who I feel like I need to see more of them before I have a concrete opinion on them as characters. I haven't seen enough of them quite yet. Because the episode on the whole is all about Shinra. Namely Shinra versus Joker? Is that his name? I'm going to call him Joker for now. That's what he called himself. Joker being the character we saw in the previous episode, he used like ashes to his his ability, or I guess maybe he could start fires also. Like his ability is strange. He seems to have more of an ability over smoke. Like he can control fire, but he can like turn smoke into shapes and stuff like that. He also looked like he walked straight out of Hellsing, and I'm kind of all about that. I thought it looked friggin' dope. His design is on point. The character designs in general are on point. Like across the board, the new characters are all pretty cool looking, and I really dig the design, especially the cat girl's sort of like the fire looking like an actual cat. I thought that was really neat. We saw that in the OP as well, her ability. But I do think Joker's ability is the one that lends itself most to animation, seeing the smoke move into the shapes and like as he's like smoking, like as the smoke comes out of his cigarette, it's friggin' dope looking. It's really cool. And speaking of really dope looking and very cool, the fight scene is really dope looking and very cool. The animation, as always from this show, as we've seen in the last 2 episodes, we're seeing here, the animation during fights is fluid and beautifully done. It's so engaging and exciting. David, like I said in I think either episode 1 or 2, you could have tricked me if I knew nothing about Fire Force. You could have tricked me into saying this is a Bones fight. Like David Pro really brings it in the fight scenes. I think that's. I honestly, as much as I like the characters that we've seen so far, I do think the animation in the fights itself is really my favorite part about the show. The characters are great, but the fights are the friggin' best. And friggin' Obi drops the bomb that the 8th exists to keep an eye on the 1 through the 7th. And that, not only did that give me flashbacks to one of my favorite shows of all time in the top 10, Aka, 13 Territory Inspection Department, but that's friggin' dope. That is such a cool idea. The idea that the 8th is actually meant to investigate the Fire Force from within and figure out the cause of the Infernals and put a stop to it. And I was so hyped. That was so hyped. And again, that scene, like I said earlier in the worth noting section of the video, that scene didn't move much. There wasn't much animation in that scene. It was just a still shot while Obi talked with Shinra. But man, just the idea that the plot is a lot more deep than I thought it was gonna be, and has a lot more heart than I thought it was gonna have. Man, Fire Force is the one to keep an eye on for sure. I do have a negative though. I have a negative and more a nitpick and a negative. You know what I mean? Like one I think is just more of a me thing, and the other one is also a me thing. Let's get into it. So the first of my nitpicks is I do feel like the beginning of the episode, like the very, very beginning when we meet up with the nerdy Spike Spiegel character, and he's kind of filling us in on the world building, that felt rushed. World building in this episode felt sort of rushed in the beginning. Once we get to the Obi stuff, it makes a little bit more sense. But like in the beginning where they're like, yeah, there's like the world is like folding in on itself, like apparently quite literally, like dimensions or something, or space or something, like space is folding in on itself, and like other countries are like exploding into fire, and Tokyo is one of like the last places you can go or something. It was a little convoluted. I actually replayed it twice, and then I think I went back a third time just to really let it sink in, because I was like, huh, what? It just felt rushed. Like it felt like, why, if that's happening, if there's sections of the planet that are like folding in on itself, or like civilization is collapsing, I ain't seeing that. I'm like, I haven't seen any of that yet. You would think that if something that serious was happening, it would be a bigger deal. So that was more of a nitpick for me. I felt like maybe like I was just misreading that. Like I do feel like maybe I was just misunderstanding that scene, I assume. So again, that's why I said it's more of a me thing. I think maybe I just misunderstood. So I'm not really going to hold that against the show, because I feel like I was just misunderstanding that opening scene. However, I don't like the cat girl very much. Don't get out your pitchforks. Let me explain. It's not that I don't like her forever. I just didn't enjoy her introduction that much everybody talks about how much they like this character, especially after I said that Maki was the waifu of the show. And she still is. There's no way that this chick is topping Maki. For me! Doesn't mean that she can't top Maki for you. Know what I'm saying? And I'm fully expecting, because this is from the creator of Soul Eater, and I liked basically everybody. In fact, I'm pretty sure I liked every single character in Soul Eater. Probably. I'm fully expecting to grow to like the cat girl whose name I'm forgetting, but I will remember by next week. I'm sure I'm gonna like her. I just had a bad introduction to her in this episode. She felt kind of annoying. The fan service felt really pandering, and honestly, I didn't know you could write poor fan service in today's era where fan service is such an ever-present thing. But I was like, man, this fan service is done really annoyingly. Like, he just like Shinra just, his hand slipped under her bra by accident. Are we in the 2000s? Like early 2000s? Like that was some early 2000s nonsense when it came to fan service. That's like some no sir, I don't like it. That could just be a me thing. I know y'all love your fan service, so I ain't gonna hold it against you. But I will say that that's just about all my thoughts on this week's episode of Fire Force, and I'm going to happily give it an A- with a caveat. The caveat being that a lot of shots outside of the fight, which is gorgeous, felt sort of still and like especially towards the end of the episode. Like if this was just presented to me on its own, I would have given it a B+, but because I kind of assumed that the end of the episode had shots that were maybe cut, I'm gonna have to give it an A- because honestly, I think David Pro did the best they could given the circumstance, and I think an A- is pretty appropriate. But that's gonna wrap up the video, folks. But before I go, I do, as always, have to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Dominic, Urza, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Omner Garamond, Opinionated Slime, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Tristan, and Verdon. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. If you too would like to check out the Patreon, go ahead and click the first link in the description. That would be super appreciated. And if you enjoyed today's video, then you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do now, so I ain't gonna tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated. If you're feeling stressed out today, then by all means, you go ahead and make yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.